Nice.
A bedridden boy's grandfather reads him the story of a farm boy turned pirate who encounters numerous obstacles, enemies, and allies in his quest to be reunited with his true love. This is The Princess Bride. Welcome to Holstered Gunz. That's right. We're here. Even though it's the off-season, the football off-season, Leo and I normally do a podcast all about San Antonio professional football. But San Antonio professional football is not going on right now. Regular professional football is going on right now, and we decided we would take the off-season and talk about some of our favorite movies. A couple weeks ago, we talked to you about Tombstone, and today we join up with two of our very first fans, the first fans of like the first show that we had all the way back in like 2018 when we used to cover the Commanders. We met Mo and Iris Morante, and they have been with us and hanging with us ever since. They are patrons of our show. They are good friends of ours, and they also happen to love The Princess Bride. So who else could we bring on when we're going to talk about The Princess Bride? Mo and Iris, how are y'all doing today?
Doing pretty good. Been a good day, and I'm ready to talk about this Princess Bride. It's a good one.
Doing great. Doing great.
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys.
Go ahead.
Just
it's a great
hi.
movie.
Yep.
It's a great movie. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. I got to start. I posted today, is this the most quotable movie there is? Like, is this the movie that has the most, like, if you laid out the script and highlight the lines that get quoted from this movie, would this be the one that has, like, the highest number of quotable lines in it?
It's
Inconceivable.
it's
Inconceivable.
if not the most, it's near the top. I mean, one that jumps on my mind that I think maybe could compete with it is Pulp Fiction, because there's a lot of quotes in that movie, but it's definitely up there, top three, if not the very top one.
Let's just get it out of the way now. Let's just talk about it now. What are your favorite quotes from The Princess Bride? That way we won't do it the whole episode. We won't be coming back to, I love this quote. What are some of your favorite Princess Bride moments, quotes? I'll start with something rare or that people don't grab onto a lot so that you guys can still have yours. One of my favorite moments, I think it's the line delivery, is when they're asking about the gate key, and the guy is like, what key? I don't know about any key. And Inigo turns and says, Physic, tear his arms off.
Tear his arms off.
Oh, you mean this key? Like, he immediately pulls it out of his, oh, you mean this key. The delivery is great. It's one of my favorite moments. It makes me laugh every time, even though I know it's coming. How about you guys? What are some of your favorite moments, quotable kind of things from this movie that you just absolutely love?
All right, I'll go. So I actually had two. So, of course, Inconceivable. And then, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. That one I've heard a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. That one has always been my favorite one. That last one about the be prepared to die. Yeah, that was funny.
Something interesting to me about that quote is as you watch the movie, he delivers it something like 10 or 12 times. Just the way the movie is written. And
stop saying that.
In each one of his deliveries, he is communicating something different. And you know what he is saying each time he says it, even though the line is the same. It's interesting. It's an exercise that actors use a lot where they take one line and they say it over and over as many different ways as they can to get as many different subtexts across. Mandy Patinkin does a great job with it, with that line, because he communicates a lot with that same line throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So for me, Phillip, you stole mine because you mean this gate key.
Oh, you mean
that?
this gate key.
That is my favorite line. Besides, the classic, "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." But to pick a second one, that was my choice. And then when you said it right away, I was like, there we go, thinking on the same wavelength again. But besides that one, the other one that really left an impression on me and makes me kind of smile every time is when they're with the Miracle Maker, and he's trying to determine whether or not he actually wants to revive Wesley or do this job for him or not, for only was it
65.
65. Yeah.
I never worked for so little.
Yeah, never worked for so little. And he's like, he's mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and dead. Yeah, so that was pretty great. And then when he, does that thing that pushes the air in him and breathe. Yeah. Yes. And he says, what reason you have to come back? I asked him, he says, true love. And he's like, what's more noble than true love? And he's like, no, he clearly said to blave. As we all know, to blave means to bluff. He probably owes you money from a card game. Yeah, that was and then Carol Kane, the great Carol Kane, coming out at that liar.
Yes.
Yes. Role, but he's fantastic.
Iris, what do you got?
Do it.
What do you got? What's one of your favorite quotes, lines?
Of course, you've already said them about the whole, my father, you killed my father and prepared to die, right? That's always been my favorite one. But not just really about the whole line, but whenever they're in the one, I'm kind of going off topic a little bit, but when he was like saying to her the whole time, he's like, that he'll always find her because he loves her, right? But did they really think that him having the mask on nobody didn't know who he was? I mean,
it's an interesting question. Like, how does Buttercup not know this is him?
Yeah, I'm like, did she really not? Yeah.
You talk about how this person is your true love, and the one quality you bring up as you're talking to the Dread Pirate Roberts about your true love is he had eyes like a storm on the morning, something like that.
Yeah.
But that's the only part of this guy you can see.
Yep.
Yes.
And you still don't get it.
The same eyes. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say it's not just the mask. He also has the bandana, so she can't see his hair. So maybe that could strengthen that weak argument. But I will bring this up. Clark Kent.
Right.
Clark Kent. It's just a set of glasses. If Superman can do it, Wesley and
Wesley can do it.
Yep, Wesley can do it. Yep.
Almost anything uttered by Andre the Giant is incredible.
Oh yeah,
but
he's awesome.
But my way is not very sportsmanlike is one that makes me chuckle every time too. Finish him your way. What's my way? When his head comes in, hit him with the boulder. My way is not very sportsmanlike. Great. So some basics about this movie. Not that anybody that's watching or listening doesn't know, but it stars Carrie Elwes, Robin Wright, Mandy Patinkin, Andre the Giant, Wallace Shawn, Fred Savage, Peter Falk, Chris Sarandon, Christopher Guest, Billy Crystal, Carol Kane, Peter Cook, Mel Smith. That's just about everybody that's notable. There are still other people in this that are really, really great. But those are the most notable people. It was written by William Golding based on a novel called The Princess Bride. Interesting story that if we have time, I'll get into at the about that and how all that came about. Directed by Rob Reiner. Made on a budget of $16 million. It grossed $31 million. So not a blockbuster, not just something that just ran away at the box office. but at least it made its money back and doubled its money almost. And then its runtime is 98 minutes. What was your first contact with this film?
Ooh.
And we have to start with Leo because Leo has promised us a cool story. So, Leo, we are all waiting with bated breath for the cool story, your first contact with the Princess Bride.
I don't know if it's a cool story. It's a traumatic event in my life. It's a funny story. It's kind of like a Wonder Years type event, or some sort of movie of preteen, adolescence, disappointment. Let's say. So Dolores is not like this story, by the way. I've told it to her. I had to retell it to her because she'd forgotten all about it. I think she blocked it out of her brain because it's not a story. It's not a story she likes. But when this came out, this movie came out in 87. I was 11, going on 12 years old. Little fat kid, I'm still a nerd. I was, nerdy back then, but still had a good sense of humor where I was okay in school and I wasn't an introvert or anything. I talked to people and had friends and, I had a social life, but, there weren't any girls at that time that were any kind of interested in me other than, to have a good laugh about something. But there was this one girl that I had a really big crush on. Little rich girl. I went to private school and I was, not rich, there on financial assistance. So, she was like the perfect, dream girl for adolescence, the one that was out of reach almost. Like I had no business having the crush that I had. And my friends, I had a couple of close group of friends. They knew that I had a crush on this girl. And I remember walking down the hallway and talking with a couple of my friends, that we were there. And she comes up to us. It's during our, break or whatever. And she comes up to us and she's like, starts talking to us. And she says, "Hey, Leo, have you seen Princess Bride yet? This is a great movie that just came out." And I was like, "No, I haven't seen that movie." "Oh my God, I can't believe you've not seen this movie. It is such a great movie. I'm taking you to go see this movie. You're going to go see this movie with me." And I remember even before she finished her sentence, my friend who's standing right next to me with like no attempt to not be seen or no attempt to be obvious, did that like gaping mouth, like, oh, he's looking at me like he can't believe what he's hearing. Like, is this actually happening? While I'm standing there, smiling and going, "Yeah, I'll go to a movie with you." But at the same time, I'm just as shocked as he is, right? I'm just as surprised, pleasantly surprised and shocked as he is. And then she walks away and he's just like looking at me like, I can't believe that just happened. He's like, you're the luckiest guy in the world. And so, here I am. I'm excited about going to this movie. I come home and I tell my parents, especially my aunt. My aunt, she's like my second mom. She's one of those that wants to know everything that's going on in your life. So every time you're coming home, she would often pick me up. It's just like, "What did you do today? What happened today? Who said this to you? Who said what to you?" She wants to know every little detail. And I'm very close with my aunt, so I do tell her a lot. So she knew about this girl, and I said, she asked me out to the movies. And she's like, "Oh, it's your first date." So immediately she's taking me out shopping. She wants to buy me, clothes for this first date. And she's interested in you, and you're a catch, and why wouldn't she be? And you're good looking, and you're smart, and you're this, and you're that. And I'm just embarrassed by the whole thing, but I'm also excited. So my friends know about it. They know I'm excited about it. And then a couple of days later, because this was early in the week, a couple of days later, I get approached by one of the jock kids, the sporty, the not nerds, right. More of the guys that she hangs around with on a daily basis and hangs out with her. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, Leo, I've been meaning to talk to you." I'm like, "Yeah." And he says, "So I understand you're going on this date," or he said, "I understand you're going to the movies with I don't want to use names, but she says with so and so," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Well, she heard through the grapevine that you're under the impression that this is a date, and she's really concerned. She doesn't want you to she didn't mean it to come across like that. She's really worried that you think this is something that it's not, and she likes you as a friend and thought you would be interested in seeing this movie with her as a friend, and she doesn't want to hurt your feelings, but she also wants to make sure that you know that." And so I'm like keeping I'm keeping the face, like, "Yeah,
Right.
of course, yeah, we're just friends, of course."
Yeah,
No, I don't think that's no, you're crazy. But inside, I'm like, like any little kid, kind of a little devastated by the whole thing. So, and then it turns out because of that awkwardness and to keep it from being awkward, she invited another kid. So I show up and there's another kid there, another boy. And then, she sat on the other side of the boy and he sat between us and we watched the movie. Anyways, it was just like one of those growing pain events that some people go through, and you always remember when you think something great really happened and it wasn't to be. And it was traumatic, but I went to the movie. I said, I'm gonna go to the movie. I'm gonna enjoy it. And it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. And that's how good this movie was, that I endured a traumatic experience that I'll never forget, because it was the way it went down. I still think of the movie, and it's one of my favorites because of how fun it was.
Well, don't feel bad, Leo. I could almost tell you I have almost exactly the same story with 3 major differences. It was episode 1. It was I was in college, and she brought her mom, not just another friend. But other than that, the rest of that story,
okay, that's
exactly
worse.
the same story.
That's worse.
That's so much worse.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I understand wholeheartedly where you're coming from, and don't feel bad. That apparently happens to a lot of us.
So you really hate episode 1 then?
For so many reasons. No, except the lightsaber duel, which is funny. I thought the lightsaber duel from episode 1 might come up, but not in this particular context. Mo, what was your first contact with this movie? Do you even remember? It's one of those that a lot of people just have had. It's always
I had to really think about it, because I think the first time I saw this movie, it was my senior year of high school. So it was 96. Yeah, it was probably the first time I just got my apartment, and I couldn't afford anything else, so I watched recorded movies.
Sure.
This was one of them. Yeah.
Well, Princess Bride actually got its following, not so much when it was in the theater, but when it
was after.
Yeah, recorded. That's when it got its following. Yeah.
Yep.
Iris, how about you?
Well, gosh, I think I was. Yeah, I had already moved out, and my ex was a big movie fan person, so we always watched several different things. So of course it was a whole rented at Blockbuster, and so that's the very first time I saw it, when Blockbuster was a big thing, renting the whole Blockbuster thing and watching it at home. But yes, and then I hadn't seen it again for years until actually I met Mo, because I saw it and nobody ever really watched it prior. But so yeah, it was nice to see it again, even though I think we've seen it a couple times now together.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see it again the other day, just as a refresher. I was like, oh yeah, this, and oh yeah, just remembering just the little things. But yeah, that's when.
So I did not grow up in a family that had a lot of money, but we had a lot of like the middle class sort of connective things that middle class people had in the 80s. And one of those that I still to this day don't really understand why, we had cable, which was a big deal in and of itself, but we also had HBO. And I don't know how, because that's that's extra.
Yeah.
But we had it. Like, I remember having it as a teenager, or not as a teenager, as a kid. And so this was one of those movies. It didn't do great in the box office. So HBO it was one of the ones that was just fodder for them in the late 80s that they would just throw on, 18 times in a month, every other month. It would be on. And so I caught all of the movie at different times when I was a kid.
Oh,
okay.
I knew the movie, but I had never seen it from beginning to end, as far as I can remember, until in 2000, I got into college. I became a theater major at Angela State University. And when you're a theater major, you watch a bunch of movies. Movies and film becomes a big deal. And so I ran across it again. And of course, I knew it. I remembered it. I could even quote parts of it. But I actually got to enjoy it as one thing, as this full sort of unit. And I loved it. Fell in love with it. So
that reminds me of how you were saying earlier about how you were kind of analyze that line, and the way an actor says a line, it has different meanings throughout the movie. So the fact that you were saying it, you were in
right.
Theater, you pick up on those things.
Yeah, so much. Like, we would watch films because you're a big film person when you're in theater, because you're going to be a movie star one day. You see how that went. We would also watch really bad TV.
Okay.
We watched I had a friend of mine that I would go over to her apartment, just a friend. That's not anything more than that. But I'd go over to her apartment at lunchtime, and we would make quesadillas on her little stove and watch a soap opera that was called Passions.
Did she invite someone to go over and sit between you guys as well?
No, she didn't. But we would watch it, and not because we liked it or it was good, but because the acting on it was so terrible. We convinced ourselves, if these people can have a career on TV, we have a shot. We could maybe get there, because it was that bad. Let's talk about some of the things that makes The Princess Bride great. And I want to start with one of my favorite things that I think gets overlooked a lot. We all think about the story proper, but there is this really cool framing device that this particular story uses, with Fred Savage and Peter Falk, the grandfather reading the story to the grandson. A lot of the heart of the movie is actually in this framing device. I think if you take the framing device out of this movie,
it's not as good.
You don't remember it. You don't like it. It's not as good a movie anymore. I think it becomes something like, Stardust or Legend. I think this is very similar to, and do y'all even remember Legend, the Tom Cruise, Ridley Scott, fairy tale sort of feel? I think this becomes Legend without this framing device around it, because of the humor and we talked about this. Leo and I talked about this a little bit before you guys got here, but there are some things about the production of this movie that look cheap or feel cheap, but that's okay, because it's a story. It's a storybook story, and so it can look a little cheap, or the music can feel a little cheap.
Right.
And that's okay, because it's a storybook story.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the heart is in this framing device with Fred Savage and Peter Falk.
There's kids.
You're right.
Can we skip that?
And those interruptions is what reminds you. They build up to that with is this a kissing book? And then later on, he's like, I told you it's a kissing book. It's a kissing book. And he's like, and then the whole thing's like, well, so what? So when does he go? And all the different interruptions.
Right.
I think those are intentionally put in there. I mean, they're comedic, but it also is a reminder. There's a barrier there. There's a world within a world. When typically you go to a movie, you're going to be told a story, but you're supposed to forget that you're supposed to go into that reality for that hour and a half, that 2 hours. Yep. You're not supposed to realize that you're sitting there in that theater or wherever, and you're supposed to be absorbed into it. If it's a good movie, you're absorbed into that world for that period of time. Now, you're right, Phillip. This totally wouldn't work if it was just the Princess Bride story, you know, Buttercup and Wesley and Fezzik and that was it, and it didn't have that frame around it, because you accept those other things because you see this is a bedtime story. It's a grandfather reading a bedtime story to his sick grandson. You know, it's meant to be a little childish. It's meant to be not serious. You know, it's not meant to absorb you for that time.
I think it's even a little more clever than that, because it supposes that there will be people that come into this movie going, I don't know if I'm interested in this. Very much like the little boy. Right. I don't know that I'm interested.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
And then it reminds you along the way at key points in the story that you're enjoying this, just like he is.
Yeah.
You're nervous about her with the eels. You're upset that she's married to Humperdinck. That's not right. That's not how the story goes.
Right?
And
you're ruining it.
Yeah, you're ruining the story. This is not right. I think it's really, really clever, actually, because it reminds you that, hey, you were this little boy. You had your arm. If you came into this movie with your arms crossed and like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. You do like it. And I'm reminding you as the writer that you like this. You're enjoying this. You're having fun with this, despite the way you came into it. I think it's really, really clever.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. 100%. You're that little kid. You're that little kid sitting in the bed listening, to that story.
You absolutely are. You absolutely are. Another one of the things that I think is amazing, and we talked about this a little bit, Leo, so we have to preface this. I think the casting for this movie is absolutely perfect for 1986, 1987. Now, you could make this movie again now. Please don't.
No.
Hollywood, please leave this alone.
Yes, leave this alone.
But you could make it now with new people, and it would still be really, really good. But in that moment, look, Robin Wright was 19 years old. Cary Elwes is 23 years old. I dare you, go back and watch that very first scene, the farm boy scene, and tell me there are two more beautiful people in 1986, 1987 than Cary Elwes and Robin Wright in that moment. Like, they are just perfect. It's sickening, actually, when I look at myself in the mirror and then I look at Cary Elwes. You know, even at 23, when I looked at myself in the mirror and Cary Elwes, I was like, this is not right. This is not fair. There should be some sort of leveling off of this. He shouldn't get all of that and me get this. Just an amazing Mandy Patinkin, Wallace Shawn, and my favorite, Andre the Giant. Like, I'm a big fan of Andre the Giant in this movie. I think he is incredible. The stories that you hear of him around the set are incredible. There's a ton of it out there that you can go and consume. He is Fezzik. He is not he was not playing a character. He was
he just seemed natural.
He's himself.
Say something like that just to be silly, you know.
Just like himself. Yep.
He seemed to be this wonderful and lovely of a person, a little bit of a scoundrel. Apparently, this is one of those stories that, like, should you tell or should you not? Maybe nobody should have ever told the story, but when they used to wrestle together in Japan, the way I heard the story, the everything in Japan is smaller, and Andre the Giant is huge. And so he could not get into his bathroom to poop. And so he would have to spread out newspaper on the bed in his hotel room to poop. And then he would call Hulk Hogan and say, hey, boss, come down here. I got something I got to show you.
Wow.
That's an incredible
I've not heard that story before.
That is an incredible story about this guy. Like, this is the person that he was.
At least he did it on the paper.
Right.
Any pet owner can relate. But wow.
There were times when they were filming this particular movie that Robin Wright would get cold because she's wearing this princess outfit that doesn't have any layers to it or anything. It's just this thin sheaf of fabric, and they're filming early in the morning, late at night, some of this stuff, and she's cold, he would take his hand and put it over the crown of her head, and it would fit over her whole head to warm her up. And just stand there with his hand on her head like a puppy, like you would do with a puppy or like a baby chick or something, where you just put your hand over their whole head. He could do that. Just an incredible guy. Cast really well. There's lots of stories about Rob Reiner having to read his lines to him because he's French. Andre the Giant is French. He's not American. He did not speak English very well. You can pick up some of that in the movie, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't know what some of the stuff even meant. But he just had to listen to the line and then repeat it. Just an incredible guy. Incredible guy.
Yeah, I mean, Fezzik is Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant is Fezzik forever, which is why I disagree with the statement that you could remake the. I agree with you. Please don't. But you're saying you could make this movie again today and it still be good. I just don't see it like you can't recast Fezzik.
I could.
You can't the main characters that made this story for me as great as Cary Elwes was for Wesley and Robin Wright and all those people, the three characters that make this movie are the three kidnappers. Vizzini, Fezzik, and Inigo. Like those three performances are what make the story, and the performances of those actors. Having said that, and I will say I should what Phillip already alluded to. There's one character that I think today can be reenacted or redone, and there's a perfect actor for it, but not in The Princess Bride, and we'll talk about that later.
Save it. I could recast this. You would have to do some camera tricks because he's not as big as Andre the Giant, so you'd have to have some fun with camera tricks. But if I were casting this movie right now, Dave Bautista is Fezzik. Like, I think he has the humor and the ability. He's actually a really good actor. I think he would be great. Think of Drax, just that same sort of idea and that same sort of feeling as that he brings as Drax. I think he could do it. I think he'd be good. Not that I want to see it. Hollywood, don't do this. Don't do this.
No. No.
One other bit of casting that we have to talk about, because it just almost steals what is an incredible movie and almost steals the whole show in the 7.5 or 10 minutes they're on screen. You already mentioned Carol Kane, but Billy Crystal and Carol Kane. Oh my goodness. Like Billy Crystal, which is so funny. He didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Rob Reiner calls him and says, hey, yeah, he says, he reads the part and he calls Rob Reiner and he goes, this is just Mel Brooks' oldest man in the world, or whatever that bit is called. Like, it's just that over again. Why don't you go get Mel Brooks? Your dad and Mel Brooks are great friends. Go get Mel Brooks. And he's like, because I don't want Mel Brooks. I want Billy Crystal. I want you to do this. And so Billy Crystal agrees to do it. And there are stories about them going into town to get lunch, and he's in his full makeup, and he would do the bit. He would be Miracle Max at lunch the whole time they're there. Just incredible. Mostly dead when it's all dead. There's only one thing you could do: go through their pockets and look for loose change. Billy Crystal and Carol Kane. And what's funny is she matches him. She meets him.
Oh yeah,
blow for blow. As good as he is, she comes right in and she is on par with him.
This is one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. To Blave. And as we all know, to Blave is the bluff. So what happened is you're probably playing poker. Get away from me, witch. I'm not a witch. I'm your wife.
Yeah. Don't quote that one too much. You get in trouble with that one.
Incredible. What other things are just make this film great?
one of the scenes, I mean, it wasn't something that I would like with Billy Crystal. Like I can put on the movie to just see that part. But one of the things I really liked, it was one of these odd scenes. It just when they're standing in front of, they're at the chapel and they're waiting to get married, and it's like the voice of the priest. I could just listen. I could just hear him. I could hear him even without even seeing the movie yet. I could hear it.
A character that in the script is called the impressive clergyman. That's all that the notes give him.
I can't even remember what to call him.
And Peter Cook makes this character memorable. One of the most he has a handful of lines, and Peter Cook just takes it. And marriage. There are people. There are tons of these. There are tons of weddings where they use this speech from the priest, the impressive clergyman, to do the wedding ceremony. Are you kidding me? That is crazy. Yeah, Peter Cook. Mel Smith, another guy that we don't know really well in America, but really funny guy. He is the albino in the pit of despair, and that great moment where he's, you're in the pit of despair. Don't even think about trying. It's his throat. You think you're going one direction, and it just switches and goes the other way. Really, really incredible. Nobody else but Rob Reiner could have made this movie. And what's funny is Rob Reiner, I think he gets a bad rap now. I think people see him as kind of a safe guy, a guy that does specific kinds of movies. He does a lot of romantic comedies. But if you'll remember, at this time in his career, everything he did was different. He did Spinal Tap, and then he did Stand By Me. Those are two very different movies. Yeah, and then he does Princess Bride. Like, these are all very different. And he showed this ability to do these very, very different things. Another thing I think that makes this film great, my last thing that makes this film great, is it is not afraid, even as a family movie, kids movie, to be a little dark. Like, there is some darkness in this movie. There is some things in this movie. There's a line that as a 20-year-old I thought was genius. Now I see it as very nihilistic and sort of an awful way to look at the world. But Wesley as the Dread Pirate Roberts says something to Buttercup when she says, "You mock my pain." He says, "Life is pain, princess. Anyone who tells you anything else is trying to sell you something." And that's dark. That is nihilistic. That is not the way I want to look at the world. But there was a time in my life where I was like, yeah, that's truth. That is truth. There is some really dark moments. They plan on killing Buttercup. Wallace Shawn Vincini is going to kill her on the other side of the and they don't make any secrets about that. It's they're there to start a war. Some darkness, some real dark, scary sort of stuff. The ROUSs, I've got the movie on right now, and the ROUSs are about to pop
Rodents.
up. When I was a kid, that scared me. Those are scary. Those are kind of freaky,
Yeah. That was the scary moment in the movie for sure.
I think it's very interesting that there are three sets. I don't know that you've ever thought about this before, but there are three sets of three for Wesley in this movie. There are the three rogues that he has to defeat. He defeats Inigo in the fencing scene, which is something we've got to talk about because it's another thing that makes this movie incredible.
Yes, that's right.
He defeats Inigo, then he meets Fezzik, and then he defeats Vincini. That's three. Then he goes into the fire swamp with Buttercup. There's the three things there. There is the fire spout, the quicksand, the lightning sand, and the rodents of unusual size. Then they come out of the swamp, and the final three is the pit of despair, Miracle Maxes, and then assaulting the castle. There are three sets of three in this movie that he has to kind of overtake. A great way, great smart storytelling. Threes are important in storytelling. We all recognize the patterns of threes, and it's there. What else? Anything else that just makes this movie great?
seriously, you wanted to talk about that fencing scene?
Yeah,
so let's talk
that
about
was
fencing
my
scene.
answer. That and the rodents of unusual size. You said them both, but the fencing scene, the dialogue is just great.
So the dialogue is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I love this gentlemanly sort of, and it's from the moment that Vincini and Fezzik and Buttercup leave, and he's staring over the side, and he's like, "Hey, can you hurry it up?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like from that moment all the way through the end of the battle, the dialogue is incredible. These two men respect each other. They are having fun.
Mhm.
And it's the actors. It is Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin doing this incredible thing in front of your eyes. They practiced on it for the entire shoot. They started very slow. They worked up in speed. It's the last thing that was shot. And they were so good by the end that they did it too fast. And Rob Reiner was like, "That's too short. I need you guys to slow down a little bit so that we can draw it out some." And they're like, "Dude, what?" So they were actually able to do that faster than they were doing in front of us on the actual print of the film.
That was one of my favorite scenes, was the fencing scene.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Mhm.
Incredible. They're talking about real fencing styles. All of those styles that they talk about are real. Actual books on fencing, Capoferro and Tybalt and all of those things, real. All of that's real.
I know something you don't know. He's like, "What's that?" "I'm not left-handed."
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not left-handed either.
One of the greatest exchanges in that whole part is where he does the little flip
Yes.
that people don't like, but he lands and he pulls out the sword and he goes, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
"Nobody of consequence. I must know. Get used to disappointment." And then Mandy Patinkin, I believe I read, he ad-libbed the okay. And the okay is just perfect. Like, all right, I guess I do have to get used to disappointment. Let's continue on. Another mini 3 in there. Wesley beats Inigo 3 times in the fencing scene. He knocks the sword out of Inigo's hand 3 times. He knocks it out before they jump over, but he allows him to go get it. He knocks it out of his hand at one point, and it goes way up into the air. Inigo runs under and catches it, but he obviously could have defeated him there. And then he knocks it out at the end. He actually defeats Inigo 3 times in that fencing scene.
So on that 3, this is the one that gets me, and this is the one that kind of got me. I remember from watching it the very first time, and I want to know what your guys' thoughts on this are. So the fencing scene is fantastic. It's great, and then it's good to see these two characters that we both like by this point in the movie, and they're dueling, and you're wondering what's going to happen because, you know, on the typical duel, and they agree it's to the death. So when you're seeing this for the first time, you don't want either one of these guys to die.
Yes.
And
Right.
you're wondering what the end result is going to be, but you see them through this dialogue, and then even that starts even as he's coming up on the ropes. They gain this mutual respect for each other, where as you start getting to the close of that scene, you already know he's like, there's no way either one of these guys is going to go through with it. You know, something else is going to happen. And sure enough, Wesley doesn't kill Inigo, right? Then he moves on, and then it's the second bout with Fezzik. So Fezzik, obviously, you've grown to like by this point as well. The whole, you know, rhyming, you know, in the peanut line.
Does anybody want a peanut?
No more rhyming. I mean it. Yeah. Does anybody want a peanut? But you have this respect for these characters. You're enamored by them already. So by this time, you saw Wesley didn't kill Inigo. So at this point, you're like, there's no way Wesley's gonna kill Fezzik. But how's he gonna best him? You know. So that's
right.
I think that's the suspense in the second scene where he's, you know, he's his bout with Andre, with Fezzik. So then that one passes. And then you come immediately to the scene with Vicini. And that's the one that caught me off guard, because I will 100% agree, of the 3 rogues, Vicini is the least likable character, but through his repetitiveness and his cockiness and the inconceivable, like this is a character that you've come to be a little bit, connected with at this point. And so you're like, no way you're expecting anything to happen to either one of these characters. So let's see how this battle of wits unfolds. And Wesley kills him. He kills himself.
He kills himself, yeah.
But Wesley knew he was going to die. He didn't do anything to avoid the death of Vicini, and that caught me off guard. I was not prepared for that.
It's important to note here that Wesley did not cheat. I read some blog posts and listened to some folks on YouTube. If it's on YouTube or on a blog, it means that these people are smart and know what they're talking about. You can't just have a blog or a YouTube channel just out of the blue. You actually know something. But they seem to intimate that Wesley cheated. He didn't cheat. He never said that the poison was only in one cup. Right. Never said it. He said, "Where is the poison?" If Vicini had said, "You have poisoned both cups," then he wins. Then he would have won the, I don't know what happens at that point. But Wesley did not cheat. I read several folks that were like, Wesley cheated or lied. He never lied. He never cheated.
Right, exactly.
So I want to know your thoughts on that, though. Were you expecting that? Like, what did you think of Vicini's demise?
It is played so comedically that I was okay with it. Like I did not. Again, I've known this movie almost as long as I've known movies, so I knew it was never a surprise to me that I can remember. But it is played for such comedic effect. Never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line. It's played for such comedic effect. By the way, the comment I get most often on my voice on from this podcast is that I am a slightly deeper register Wallace Shawn. Okay, I guess I just got to take that. That's fine.
I was impressed with how still and quiet, the princess was just sitting there.
So that's perfect. That brings me to what would you change about this movie? And since you started there, I'll start there. I want Buttercup to have a little more to do in this movie.
Yeah, not just so quiet. It's almost like she's not there.
She's written very strange. She has a couple of moments where she's strong and powerful. She calls Humperdinck a coward to his face, and you're like, where is this coming from? You sat quietly while three guys passed you around. You never attempted to escape a single time. What's going on here? Who is this person? I think she's written weird. I think for a movie that is 90% perfect, I think there's a little bit of a problem, which now I know I'm going to start, if people are paying attention, I did not like the women characters written in Tombstone. Now I do not like Buttercup and the way she's written here. I'm going to get a note somewhere along the way that I hate women.
Well, I mean, you figure the name of the movie, you would think she would have had more dialogue.
I can explain it.
Interesting thing about the name of the movie, she is never at any point a princess or a bride.
Right. That's true.
They call her the princess when they introduce her to the crowd and she gets booed by the one lady.
Do you know how the title came about? William Golding asked his two daughters what he should write about next. He was having a moment of writer's block, and he said, what should I write a story about next? One daughter said a princess, the other daughter said a bride.
Okay.
So that's how he got that. What were you going to say, Leo, about Buttercup, about Princess?
I can explain, not that I don't agree, because I do think she can show more strength in the movie at certain points, because she does display it at moments. And then other times she seems a little weak, like a little out of character. But
She does.
I can explain it.
Okay.
I can explain it. The reason why she sits idly by through this first part, the entire first part, where she's, you know, under the control of the rogues, and when she's sitting there next to Vizzini. One thing I noticed, but I didn't notice this when I was a kid watching this. I noticed this much later, probably on my third or fourth viewing. She's blindfolded. Now, why did Vizzini take the time and the trouble to blindfold her for this encounter between him and Wesley? Because he didn't want to worry about her communicating with Wesley behind his back, because he's sitting off to where he can't see what she's doing. And if she's watching what's going on, then she's able to communicate with him using just her face.
Okay.
And you know, show his hand or help Wesley out. By being blindfolded, she can only listen to what they're saying, but without seeing the cups, what Wesley has done with the cups, without seeing anything that's happened there, she has no idea. She's clueless.
Right.
So she has no threat.
I just think it's very odd that she, at one point, she tries to jump into the water and swim away.
Mm-hmm.
But then as they get to the cliffs on through Vizzini, and even when she is taken by Wesley away from Vizzini, she shows no agency whatsoever. And then all of a sudden she's shoving him down a hill. Where was that energy when Vizzini, this little guy who's twice, you know, who's half your size, you could have taken that dude. Like, where is that same agency? It's just very odd. I think she's written very strangely.
I think she, up to that point, when she, you know, as you wish, as he's tumbling down the hill, up to that point, and you're right, there's inconsistencies that you brought up, Phillip. She's kind of given up on life. She's, whatever happens is going to happen. You know, she's going to marry the count. You know, like, she's just going with the flow, and whatever happens, she doesn't care, because she's never going to live the life that she thought she was destined to live, because her true love has been taken away. And it's not until she realizes that she still has a chance at that she changes. And that's what, I mean, it takes strength to throw yourself down a hill and follow him. And then, you know, they stand up to, you know, they go through the forest, they stand up to the count, whatever. And then later on, like, so her approach after that is of hope, because, oh, Wesley's alive. I know as long as my true love is alive, he's going to come get me. She has a certainty of it, which is why she just stays in waiting, thinking that once Wesley knows this marriage is going to happen, he'll be here, and it's not going to happen. So
by the way,
that's the explanation, but I agree with you. There's a lot of inconsistencies.
If you were unsure that this is a fairy tale, when they fall down the hill, when they roll down the hill, they're dead. Like, if this isn't a fairy tale, they both break their necks. They're dead.
They're like bouncing on this.
I'm surprised the stunt people didn't break their necks. Like, that is an incredible.
I love that you hear them going all the way down. Oh, ow, oh,
yes,
oh, ow.
And just a great moment of absurdity. And, you know, as you wish, as he goes down, and she goes, oh, my sweet Wesley. And just swan dives down the hill. She just jumps down the hill. It's just this great moment of absurdity. Other things that I would change about this film, the music. There are times I really like the music. The music, Buttercup's theme, what I would call Buttercup's theme, which is very string heavy. It's very nice. It's my favorite piece of music from the film. But a majority of the music sounds very much like what it was, which is one guy on a synthesizer. It's Mark Knopfler. Mark Knopfler is one of the lead singers of Dire Straits. And he was asked to do the music for the film. He had a condition. He told Rob Reiner, I will do the music for your movie if you will put the hat that you wore in oh crap, the movie that he did first, the mockumentary. Help me. I just said the name a few minutes ago.
Which
this one goes up to 11. What is the
You got me.
Rob Reiner's first movie.
Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap. Yes, this is Spinal Tap.
Yeah, okay.
He's wearing a Navy hat. Rob Reiner is through that movie. And he said that has to be in the movie somewhere. It is actually on a hat rack behind Fred Savage in his room. So it made it in the movie, and Mark Knopfler agreed to do the music. But for the most part, I do not like this music. It is not. It is very, very one man on a synthesizer. I don't appreciate it. It fits okay because it feels cheap and it's a storybook, like we talked about before.
Right.
But I don't like the music very much. I'm not a big fan of the music.
I want to go last on this one, if you don't mind.
Okay. Another thing I'd change about this movie is I would make it a movie for all seasons. I would not make it a Christmas movie. And it is very clearly a Christmas movie
like Die Hard?
Like Die Hard. Like the same thing that everybody does with Die Hard. And like it happens at Christmas, so it's a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie.
This is a Christmas movie. Santa is right up over Peter Falk's shoulder. Every time they go to him reading the book, there's a cutout Santa. It's snowing outside when she opens up the window. The present he gives Fred Savage is wrapped in Christmas paper. It is a Christmas present. This is a Christmas movie. I really wish I could watch it the rest of the year and not just on Christmas like this and Die Hard. I really wish it wasn't a Christmas movie. That's kind of a bummer. Leo, I think I know what you've got. What have you got? Oh, do y'all have anything else? Anything else you would change about this movie?
Yeah, let's see if Mo and Iris have anything.
No, I don't think so. I get a kick out of those the rats and how human they look looking at them now.
Because they are.
Right?
Yeah, because they are.
Absolutely, guys in suits. Yeah.
It's like something I see at Chuck E. Cheese.
When he pries open the mouth and the tongue is like flagging, and again, more absurdity. Just
right.
Great stuff.
They need to have that like in a theme park somewhere, like a Princess Bride, a Princess Bride experience, and you go into the fire swamp, and there's these people in these rat suits that run out after you.
I don't know about that one, but okay.
That'd be a good setting to add for Halloween, the Scream Fest or something. These giant rats jumping out.
All right, what do you got, Leo?
Okay, okay. So, look behind me. What do you guys see behind me and up here and all around here? You see
Wolverine and
all my little trinkets and toys, because I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I like that kind of stuff. So the one thing, and it's lame, I know it is, but I wouldn't change the music. I wouldn't change, Christmas movie. You can watch it whenever you want, Philip. You just put the movie on. Like, you control your own remote control and your own TV. You can watch it any time of the year. I give you permission to watch it any time of the year.
No.
You don't only have to watch it at Christmas.
It's only Christmas. You can only watch Christmas movies at Christmas time. Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Princess Bride. These you can only watch one time a year because they're Christmas movies. Sick of this argument. None of those are Christmas movies. None of them.
Sure they are.
Go ahead.
Sure they are.
My only, and it's a nitpick complaint about this movie is because I'm a geek and I'm a nerd and the 80s were my jam. I looked at Fred Savage's, the grandson's room, and right away I'm noticing everything that's in his room. I'm like, look, there's William the William Perry, the fridge poster on his wall. There's Chicago Bears stuff. From that I know he lives in Chicago. There's all this kind of stuff. He's got He-Man and Captain America and Battle Cat, and I'm remembering. I had these toys, and I thought it was great. And I'm trying to like notice all the little things behind him. It's got the little Jeep and just all kinds of cool stuff that any geek like me that's into collecting nonsense like I am, will notice. And it bugs me that when they do the cutscenes and it switches back and forth, you can tell very obviously which scenes they filmed and then they filmed other scenes later because the stuff is moved. He-Man is in a different position. Battle Cat is not even there sometimes. Sometimes Captain America is like leaning over the Jeep, and sometimes he's laying back. It's like who was in charge of the set and the props? Somebody went in between filming and played with those toys and didn't pay any attention to where they were at and put them back however they wanted. And then it totally ruined it for me because every time they cut the scene, I'm like, yep, there's Captain America. He's hunched over instead of leaning back again. And yeah, it's a total stupid thing.
Story. Let me ask you something, Lisa. How can you have Battle Cat and not Cringer?
Oh, I know, right? You gotta have Cringer. Yes. No, he didn't have Cringer though. Maybe he was down on the floor or something.
It's the same toy. Battle Cat and Cringer are the same toy. You just snap the little faceplate on. Yeah. You snap the little faceplate on like that. Same toy. Same toy. I'm looking right now through the credits to see if anybody was in charge of continuity. So that we can. There's a props master, Bruce Big. Bruce Big. Leo has a bone to pick with you. Shame on you, sir. Shame on you. This movie that is 30 some odd years old. We have a bone to pick with. Go back and fix it. We have the ability with computer graphics to go back and make sure Captain America is standing the whole time. Let's go fix it.
Yeah.
Hey, he was listening to the story.
If we can put radios in the FBI guy's hands in ET, we can go fix Captain America. Let's get it done.
The only explanation was the kid was playing with his toys while the grandpa was reading the story, and that's just rude. That's a rude grandkid.
I will tell you, what is Fred Savage? He's like 8, 9, and they put him in this room full of toys. I guarantee you Fred Savage was playing with some of those toys in between like lighting and shooting and all that kind of stuff.
Probably.
Like he's saying. How might it have? Oh, there's one other thing that we would change, and it's something that can be changed. Leo, we teased it earlier, but you have a great idea to take the IP from Princess Bride and do what we do with all IP in Hollywood now. Run it into the ground for money.
Yes.
Tell us about your idea.
So like I said, I would not do this movie again. I don't think any of the characters should be recast except for one. One character who was played excellently, by the way, in Princess Bride, incredibly, but can be played, I think, just as well, not better, just as well as a current well-known actor, and that is Inigo Montoya. If there's not a more perfect role for Pedro Pascal, I don't know what it is. Pedro Pascal would make a great Inigo Montoya, but I don't want to see him in a remake of Princess Bride. So I propose a continuation of Inigo Montoya's story as the Dread Pirate Roberts, which he takes on the mantle at the end of the story. Let's see a Dread Pirate Roberts movie with Pedro Pascal playing Inigo Montoya as the Dread Pirate Roberts. I would go see that.
I agree. I could see that. I could definitely see that.
And now that it's on the internet and it's out there, if it ever happens, Leo should get a producing credit.
Right here.
Right.
And since I allowed Leo to bring up the idea, I want an EP credit. I want an executive. Why not? Why not?
That's
How much
cool
this movie?
Idea,
It is. It's a pretty good idea. And it is what we do with all Hollywood IP right now. We find some little thing and we expand it into its own gigantic movie. And Dread Pirate Roberts, Inigo Montoya as the Dread Pirate Roberts. Like you'd make your money, Hollywood. Hollywood would get its money.
Oh yeah.
To our detriment. This is not the way Hollywood should go. But at this point, we just kind of have to steer into it. And why not? Let's do that. Let's make that movie. How might this movie have been different? There's a lot of casting rumors and a lot of casting things that are out there. I didn't grab those like I usually do because there was only one that I thought might make this movie. It would be different. I don't know if it would be better. We kind of did this, Leo, with Tombstone. When we were talking about Tombstone, we all love Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, but the idea was brought up of not James Woods, the other guy, Willem Dafoe.
Willem
Dafoe as Doc Holliday, and we were all like, "Huh, I would like to see what that would have looked like." I think this is a similar sort of thing where I'm very happy with what we got in the movie. I just think this might be interesting to see. Wallace Shawn was not the first choice to play Vizzini.
Oh,
okay.
The first choice to play Vizzini was Danny DeVito, but he was busy with Taxi, so he couldn't do it. And Wallace Shawn,
good, yeah.
Wallace Shawn was convinced throughout the entire shoot that he was going to get fired because they were going to be able to get Danny DeVito because he was doing such a terrible job. Like he was scared to death that Danny DeVito was going to walk on set any minute and like, thanks, Wallace, you're done. We're going to reshoot all of your stuff. You're not the guy anymore. Danny DeVito would be interesting. Like it's another one of those things where I'd like to see that. I wonder what that looks like.
So older Danny DeVito, like what's the sitcom?
Taxi. This is
the new
Always
Sunny in Philadelphia.
Sunny. Yeah.
That Danny DeVito, I could see making a great Vizzini, but a younger Danny DeVito, Taxi Danny DeVito, even Throw Mama from the Train Danny DeVito. I think Wallace Shawn is the better choice.
He's not as funny. There's a lot more darkness in the character. It takes on a more serious tone. All of Vizzini begins to take on a little bit more of a darker, more serious tone with Danny DeVito. Which is crazy because Wallace Shawn, from what I've read about him, is one of the smartest people to ever be in Hollywood. He is a genius. The character he plays on Young Sheldon, that is him. He is that kind of genius, apparently. He wrote My Dinner with Andre, a movie that acting people and movie people absolutely love. That is very weird. I don't love it, but a lot of people do. It's very existential and it's very cerebral. He wrote it and starred in it. Very smart guy. But Danny DeVito would have brought something that I'm just curious. I would love to hop over into the parallel universe where that happened and see it, but keep the version of Princess Bride we have. Like I would like to see what it looks like. Very much like Willem Dafoe is Doc Holliday. Like I want to see that, but I'm perfectly happy with what we got. I don't want to lose that. I just want to see what this looks like. So where does this film rank? Is it one of your top movies of all time? Is it just top in its genre? Is it just an movie? Where do you put this movie in your pantheon of movies? Let's let our guest go first. Iris, where is this movie for you?
I mean, okay. Riley wants to put in her 2 cents. She's putting her pie on me. I mean, it was a good movie. It's not one of those, oh my gosh, I want to go see that all the time. So, I mean, it was good, but it's not one of my all-time favorite. That's just my opinion.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Mo, what do you think? Where do you put this movie?
This would be in my top 10 of all-time favorites. And reason being is, even though it's in top 10 of movies that are like excellent directing, casting, and all that, like major action, cheap, lots of detail, things like that, it is still in my top 10 simply because it grew on me and I just fell in love with the characters. And it wasn't about the quality of anything per se. It was just how it became a classic over time. It's just one of those, if, I know I can put it on and it's not, well, I'm just going to fast forward or walk away. It's like, I want to see the whole thing whenever I put it on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Leo, how about you? Where do you put this movie?
This is one of those movies that, like, you don't consider it, prime cinema, all-time greats in that sense, but it is one of the most likable movies that you'll ever see. And that's what makes it. It's very memorable because of how much you like it, and of course the quotability, and there's just little things in the movie that when you put it all together, they say, the sum being greater than the parts. It kind of applies to this movie. It doesn't necessarily, because there's great parts in this movie. When you talk about Andre the Giant, especially for me, and some of the actors in this film. But for me, it's not like when you let's talk about great cinema. This isn't in that category, but when you say, let's talk about a movie that you really liked and enjoyed just for what it is, this is right up there near the top.
Okay, fair enough. I think this movie is great. I love this movie. Would I put it in the top 10 of anything that I can think of? No, not really. It's not a top 10 comedy for me. It's not a top 10 action movie for me or adventure movie. Like there are others that I would put there. That being said, I love it, but I think that this movie has a lot of nostalgia connectivity to it that if you did not have, you would not like. So let me bring up what I mean. Let me explain what I mean. I hate. I'm using the word hate. I don't use that word a lot, but I hate Mary Poppins. I think it's terrible. I hate the movie. I can't stand it. Why? I never watched it as a kid. I had no connection to it as a child. I did not see it until I was 25 or 26 when my wife was showing my daughters all of those. Mary Poppins, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, a bunch of stuff that No Mobile, all the stuff I had never seen before. I didn't watch those when I was a kid. I think all those movies are terrible. I do not like them, but Mary Poppins is the one like everybody likes. I like Saving Mr. Banks. I think that is a decent movie. I do not like Mary Poppins because I do not have this nostalgic connectivity to it. I suspect Princess Bride would be the same way. If you did not have that nostalgia connectivity to it, where it was something you watched when you were younger and developed a love for then, you wouldn't feel the same way about it as an adult. I truly believe it's probably one. So if you made a top 10 of those movies, like, yeah, maybe that goes there.
That makes sense because I kind of look at the Goonies the same kind of way,
What'd you say, the Goonies?
Goonies, yeah.
Yeah, Goonies fits in that very, very well. I think if you watched Goonies as an adult, you would go, I don't get it. Right,
yeah.
I don't get it. No, none of us watches Goonies that way. It's an amazing movie. We don't watch it that way. E.T. is that way. If you had no connection to E.T. and just watched it as an adult,
it is terrible movie.
It is weird and it's awful.
Terrible movie. I hate to say it, but E.T. sucks. It is such a bad movie.
But when you grew up with it and it has this nostalgic sort of connectivity, you're like, I love this movie. It's a great movie. I think Princess Bride is like that in a lot of ways. I don't know that I would put it on the top 10 of anything, but I do know it's one of my go-to movies. Like it was on our list. We made a long list of 65 or 70 movies. It was on that list. It got selected to be one of our 10 movies we wanted to cover. So I mean, it's there, but not every movie we wanted
in some kind of fashion.
Yeah.
Well, but not every movie we wanted. Some of the movies we decided to cover, we were just like, we need to do this sort of area. We haven't done it yet. And really,
we wanted to diversify.
Yeah. Okay. Inside Baseball, we selected our movies in a draft. Tombstone was the no-brainer number one movie we were going to do because of our connection to that movie with our other show. But then we both sat down and said, okay, what's next? And we thought, how can we go as far as we can the other direction?
I see.
From Tombstone, can we go the other direction? And Princess Bride is where we wound up. So we wanted to kind of spread our net out a little bit. And that's how we wound up with Princess Bride. There are other movies that we'll cover this offseason that are not top 10 movies for me. I'm like,
I'm curious to see
what's going to be the next one.
Well, what a great way.
I mean,
you brought up. Is there anything else, Princess Bride, we need to talk about? Is there anything else with the Princess Bride we need to discuss?
Two things I want to say, just to carry on that topic, what you said. Maybe not top 10 on a lot of people's lists, but near there. In for a bunch of different reasons, or the top 20, You know, it's a movie that I agree with you, Philip. If you saw it at some point when you were young, it's a movie that you're always going to remember. It's up there somewhere. And for some people, it might be in the top 10. And I would not argue against it with anyone.
No,
because I would certainly
this movie that much,
understand it. Yeah,
I'm happy for you. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, and then the other thing, and it's just these connections with the movie that are just so fun. When I was kind of just looking on the internet and for points to talk about on the show and topics related to the Princess Bride, I found this article out there, and I don't remember what site it was, but if you were to Google like 10 things a Princess Bride fan should do, I'm sure you'll find it, because it was a list of 10 things, and there weren't. I'm not saying it's a great list, but there were two things in that list when I read. There were two things that I saw, and I was like, I would so do that, and I kind of want to do that now. So the first thing is oh gosh, I'm forgetting it. So the first thing is, when you meet someone, ask them if they happen to have 6 fingers on their right hand. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? Like, you just meet someone, you wouldn't happen to have 6 fingers on your right hand, would you?
Talk about a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you always start conversations this way? It's a great, like.
That's awesome.
I think
that's great. I love it.
I think that would be so great, and they would, and if they happen to get the reference, then that would just be like icebreaker. Like, immediately, you're my friend. Like, if you get that reference with me, like, we're friends now. It's like from Step Brothers. Did we just become friends? Best friends?
We just become friends? Yeah. I will drag this all the way around. When I started talking about what makes this movie great, we talked about the framing device, and so I'm going to utilize the framing device here. We started at the beginning with it. I want to go to the end and say the framing device provides the heart for the movie. And if you can watch this movie, like, stay engaged and watch this movie, and at the end where the boy says, maybe you can come read it to me again tomorrow, Grandpa.
Yeah.
And he turns around, Peter Falk turns around, grandfather turns around and says, as you wish. Everything that means now to us after being through this movie, if you don't get a little bit misty in that moment, you're dead inside. And what's great about that moment is they didn't have it. They created the movie. They edited the movie. They shot it and edited it, and they did not have that moment. They had a long shot of it, but they did not have a close-up of Grandpa saying, as you wish. And so they called Peter Falk back. They filmed an insert to go in, and I don't care what it cost. That may have doubled the budget. It didn't. But that may have doubled the budget. It was worth it. That is the best way to end this movie. Because it's all of the heart is right there in that moment.
Absolutely.
Because those words now mean something to us.
Yeah.
As you wish is something important to us. And they did a great job with that.
Yes.
It's a good movie. I'm not trying to, it's not one of my favorites of all time. It is one I've shown my children. It is one my children are like, yeah, it's good. It's okay. Which I don't get, and that bothers me. I hate, you guys have everybody's done this, sitting someone down to watch something that you love, and you're watching them more than you're watching the movie because you know it's good, and you're watching their reaction, and they're on their phone. Ah!
I know that feeling, though.
I introduced this movie to my kids, Princess Bride, and they loved it. So I'm thankfully I didn't have that same experience as you, Philip, but I did have that experience, and it was way before they were at the age to use a phone. So it was just they weren't interested. They're like, I remember it hurt my heart when they turned around and said, "This is a terrible movie, Dad. Why did you think this is good?"
Oh.
And then what even hurt me even more was I realized they were right, because it was not the movie that I remembered as a kid.
Right.
And that's The Never-Ending Story.
Oh yes. Same thing.
Yes.
I hate The Never-Ending Story. Hate it. Can't stand
My
it.
kids hated it. I don't think we
And I'll
finished
tell
it.
you,
I don't think we finished it.
when you go back and watch it through their eyes, it's not very good.
It's not good. It's like it destroyed a piece of my childhood, man. Thanks, kids.
Love that movie.
Another awesome story that I want to bring up about The Princess Bride that I didn't know if we were going to tell or not. We didn't, but we've got a little time. And so I want to talk about it. Mandy Patinkin. All of these people, by the way, everybody that was in this show has been interviewed and talked about this ad nauseum. Carrie Ellis wrote his memoirs and called it As You Wish. Like all of these people have talked endlessly about this movie that were in it. It's that kind of phenomenon. Mandy Patinkin talks about his motivation in playing Inigo Montoya because he connected so well in this scene. It's actually the scene that's on right now as I'm watching it here in my office. The final battle with Count Rugen, where he gets to kill the man that took his father away from him. Mandy Patinkin, about a year before, I want to say it was a year, don't quote me, I may be thinking that wrong, but not long before he shot this movie, had lost his father to cancer. And he loved this moment that he could take Christopher Guest and personify this thing that took his father away from him and defeat it and kill it, defeat it. It's really a moving story, much more moving from Mandy Patinkin. You should go read it than it is from me, but just a beautiful moment and one of those things that makes the movie mean more when you watch it the next time and you realize the emotion that you're seeing there when he stabs. Oh, another great story. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm feeling that emotion just right now, thinking about it, because it struck me that last line when he says, offer me whatever I want. And he says, I'll give you whatever I want. And there is emotion in his face. And now that I know that story, I understand where that's coming from. And he says, I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And you can see it in his face.
Yeah.
And now that you tell me that story, it
Makes
just
complete
it
sense.
hits me right here.
So
in the heart.
real.
Yeah. So as most of you know, I'm a pastor. I was a youth minister for 15 years. One of the things that you do in the summer in youth ministry, as kids kind of float in and out with vacations and stuff during summer, is you have a lot of movie nights. And there's not a lot of great movies that I want to watch over and over again that is suitable for showing the teenagers. But I picked this movie one night and we're sitting there, we're eating popcorn. I've got a teenager, love him to death. One of my football players is sitting there. He's eating his popcorn. And we get to that moment and he stabs him and he says, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. And there's a cuss word in the movie. And this kid, Chris Johnson, looks over at me and he goes, Phillip, I can't believe that you... And I'm like, what? I've heard you say worse in this building as your youth minister. I've heard you say worse than that. I'm not worried about that word. I am not worried about it. Just a great moment, though. Yeah, it's on screen right now. Offer me money, offer me fame, and yeah, that moment. I want my father back. You son of a bitch.
He meant it when he said that. I'm certain of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Man.
That
Lots
hits
of
me right
power.
here. It really
Lots
does.
of power in that scene.
Thank you for sharing that. Did not know that. I mean,
It's great.
You
It's
can
great.
see it in his eyes, but now I know why.
yeah, that makes
There's
complete sense. We're gonna watch it again and we're gonna be like, oh yeah.
Right?
He also
I might cry. I might cry when I see that scene.
he also injures Count Rugen in all the same ways that he is injured. He cuts him twice on the face, stabs him here, stabs him there, and then the final stab is into the gut and all the way in. All the ways that Rugen has injured him, he injures Rugen. I did a lot of work on this. I thought a lot about this movie, a lot more than maybe you're supposed to about this movie. I thought about this movie. Carrie Elwes. There were injuries on this movie. Another thing we didn't talk about. Carrie Elwes broke his toe, his big toe.
Oh.
He was kicking the helmet of an orc. No, wait, that's somebody else. That's something different that broke his toe. So Andre the Giant had a 3-wheeler ATV that he rode around all over the set. It was the only way they could get a guy that big back and forth to the places he needed to be. He could not fit in European like cars and stuff. Just didn't work out. So this was something he had in France, and this is something they gave him to ride around there in England. He kept talking to Cary Elwes and like, boss, you got to give this a try. It's so much fun. Finally, Cary Elwes is like, okay, I'll give it a try. He wrecks it and breaks his big toe. And I mean, breaks his big toe just before he's supposed to go shoot. And so he goes to shoot the scene with him and Buttercup on top of the mountain where they're arguing about life is pain and all that kind of stuff. In fact, when you watch it, you'll see him sit down and stand up very gingerly, and he walks very slowly through the whole scene. It's because his toe is facing the wrong direction. Finally, he can't stand the pain, and he goes up to Rob Reiner and he says, Rob, I'm so sorry. I think I hurt myself. And he goes, I know. I was wondering when you were going to talk to me about it. They radioed me as soon as you hurt yourself. And I was wondering when you were going to come. So they took him to the hospital in his Man in Black garb to get his toe fixed. Then a few weeks later, they're filming the scene coming out of the fire swamp where Rugen hits him over the head with the end of his sword. And Christopher Guest is trying to, mime it. And it's just not looking right. And finally, Cary Elwes says, you don't have to hit me hard, but just go ahead and hit me so that it looks real and we can move on. Knocked him unconscious. He had to go back to the hospital, same doctor, in the same outfit. And finally, my favorite injury on the set. Mandy Patinkin had to stand just off camera during the Miracle Max scene and feed Billy Crystal his lines so that they could shoot this scene. And Billy Crystal was doing his Billy Crystal things, never the same way twice, absolutely hilarious because that's who Billy Crystal is. But Mandy Patinkin can't laugh because it will ruin the shot if he laughs at Billy Crystal. So he's holding in the laughter so badly that he bruised his ribs.
What?
You're laughing hard if you bruise your ribs. Wow.
So some injuries on the set that were a lot of fun. And just so you know, Andre the Giant just pops up on my screen. He was in an incredible amount of pain the entire time they were making this movie. His back and his body were just breaking down. He would die 8 or so years later, I believe, after this film was made. All of the things that made him incredible are also the things that made his life very short. And he lived his life to the fullest and did things that were amazing. He always loved this movie and the experience he had in this movie because he said, nobody stares at me here. I'm just another person. I'm just another part of something instead of the freak. And he really had a lot of good memories of filming this. And I'm so glad that we got that side of Andre the Giant before he passed a few years later.
Absolutely.
So that is The Princess Bride. James Palmer, if you're still there, howdy. You're not late. You get to go back and watch all of this later and talk with us or interact with us about The Princess Bride. We've got another movie coming up, and because we pushed back a week here, we're going to be back next week with our next movie. Leo and I will be back, and we'll find some new folks to sit in and talk with us. And Leo, we don't like to announce what the movie is. We give hints. We give hints.
All right,
so the best hint I can give about the next movie that we're doing next Tuesday night at 7:00 is that this episode is an episode 65 million years in the making. It is one of my favorite films of all time, bar none. I ruined part of our whole thing because we always talk about where do you place this film. I would place this film very highly. It's one of my favorite films of all time. If you want to jump in, if you're like, I know exactly what movie that is, you need to reach out to us and let us know you want to come on Holstered Guns next Tuesday night. James Farmer says, well, darn, I want to know so I can watch it.
I mean,
if you Google what I just said, I think it'll come up.
65 million years in the making.
65 million years in the making. I bet you get it. I bet if you don't immediately recognize that, you Google it, it'll come up. Mo's doing it right now. She's doing it right now. I can see her. She's Googling it right now. Look at her. Look at her. I'm waiting to see if she gets it. Don't say it out loud.
Can we say it? Can we say it?
Did you want me to say it?
No, don't say it.
Okay, I wasn't planning on it. I did look it up.
We can say it after we go. After we're not.
Okay, yeah, no, I also would rank this particular movie very high.
Incredible movie. Stands up very well. Love it. One of my favorites. Well, that is Holstered Guns. This is a podcast, just an off-season fun podcast we do about films, but we are normally taking care of the San Antonio Gunslingers and the San Antonio Brahmas. We are all fans of San Antonio football. Lots of gunslinger news out there right now, by the way. Leo, we have a couple of new quarterbacks. The Gunslingers do.
We do. I'm
interested
happy
to see where that leads.
Interested. Yeah.
Interested to see where all of that leads. It's still very early in the offseason. Yes. Who knows what this team will look like as we get further along. And I've been told over the internet by the most powerful man in Gunslinger Nation, at least he seems to think so, that we don't really know anything. He's the only one that knows what's going on in Gunslinger Nation. So we'll just let him tell us all what's going on in Gunslinger Nation because we don't know anything. He's made that very clear to me. So he's not going to watch this. I'm okay. He's not going to watch it. Mo and Iris,
he'll laugh.
Mo and Iris, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us. Look at that, credits rolling, and we're going out. The podcast was exactly as long as the movie. That's perfect. Mo and Iris, thank you so much for spending time with us and talking about The Princess Bride.
Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed it. Leo, we'll be right back here next week with another great episode, another great film. I'm very excited to talk about this one. It is high in my pantheon, very, very high in my pantheon.
Yes.
Very awesome.
Well,
it'll be fun.
Well, as we said last time, life's like a movie. Write your own ending. Keep believing. Keep pretending. We'll see you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.